Always a pleasure to be joined by David Pagnotta from the Fourth Period and the DFO Rundown Insider Edition, which you can find right here on the DFO YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. Let's start with the coaching conversation, Dave. I mentioned Nashville, 2 wins in their last 10, and we had a comment in our YouTube. We said, oh, what about Andre Tournier's seat? They only have 2 wins in their last 10 as well.
Yeah, well, excuse me. I think it's a lot hotter under Bruno's seat than it is with what's going on in Utah. They like the coach there. Yeah, they're fluttering a little bit in the last little stretch here, but they wanted to be part of the playoff conversation, and they still are. Whereas Nashville wanted to be part of the playoff conversation. They're nowhere near that. I think we're getting to a point, and I mentioned this on the show yesterday with Irf, that I think we're getting to the point now where Nashville is going to entertain a variety of different options and opportunities with respect to the trade market. And I think that's also going to go back to what happens with Andrew Brunette. He's got 1 more year on his contract. Then there's a team option. He might be a casualty of of just the roster. But given the circumstances there in Nashville, it wouldn't surprise me if he's the first guy to kind of fall on the axe. I mean, there are a number of changes that need to happen with Nashville, and they do have some good young pieces, in place, and some good kids in the pipeline after some solid draft picks. But you look at how many free agents they have, you look at how much interest some of their veterans are getting, and just where they're at. I think this is a combo situation in Nashville, and I think they're evaluating pretty much every option.
Yeah, and that's rightfully so. I know Nashville's a different ownership group. They're not one to just waste money on contracts. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. But Dave, we do a betting segment every day, and one guy, and I'm not going to say who did it, but one guy picked the Ducks to win last night, and these 2 players to get points in Gauthier and Carlsson, and they're both pending RFAs. What do the Ducks do with these guys? Is this close to them, being signed, or what are we going to see here as this plays out?
It doesn't seem like it, unless conversations have picked up significantly in the last 24, 48 hours. My understanding anyways, they're fine just taking things, kind of slow in this regard still. Even with the production and how well these guys are doing, you see it right there. You look at the numbers, it's a combination of the offensive numbers plus the ice time that they're getting. These guys aren't, playing 25 minutes a night. They're not playing 15 minutes a night. They're playing solid minutes for where they're at and what their responsibilities are. And for them to put up these types of numbers in 20 games is definitely impressive. Now, the Ducks have a lot of cap space starting next season. A good chunk of that is going to be attributed to what Gauthier and Carlsson want and what they're going to get. That being said, obviously the team would like to go full term with these guys, but are these guys going to be willing to go full term? We've seen a lot of players, Lacombe signed his 8-year extension with the club, but that was before the season started. Now that these guys are putting up these numbers, are you looking at 10, 11, 12 million for Carlsson on a 4-year deal, a 5-year deal, or are you going full 8? And I think that's going to be part of the discussion, part of the negotiation once they actually get to that table. But Gauthier is going to make a crap ton of money. Carlson's going to make more, but that's going to be a big chunk of their cap going towards next season and on. But they've got the space to do that and some. This is a really interesting team right now with how they're playing, how the young kids are playing, and just how much flexibility they have financially to add and insulate this young group.
So my follow-up on that was, as we're talking about young players and a max term extension, my brain jumps to Logan Cooley out in Utah. Is 10 million, do you think that's the floor for both of these guys in terms of what they'll be asking for? Because, hell, if Leo Carlsson puts up a 95-point season and is playing the way he is defensively at his age, it's 10 better be the floor.
It will be. He's making 8 figures. It's just a matter of what that term is going to be. You could argue, based on his capabilities, 13, 14, 15, if we're going full term. That argument could be made. I've talked to a few people about that around the league. Wouldn't be surprised based on how these guys are going right now. That's a big figure, and we're not used to these numbers, but we need to be. And I've been saying this since the season started. We need to be more accustomed and more open to the fact that a lot of these guys are going to be making a shit ton of money, more than they've made before. Excuse me. But this is just where the market is. This is where things are going. And for a guy like Leo Carlsson, I mean, if he does do what you said and finishes the season with 95 and continues to play well from a two-way perspective, wow, that's a lot. Like that, there's a lot of value there. And then, with that Cooley deal, I think that's more of an indicator from an argument side for Gauthier more than Carlsson. Carlson's going to make more, is what I believe, if he's going full term. And even if he goes shorter term, I think he's going to be in the 8 figures regardless.
Wow. It's just crazy how the landscape has changed with these guys. And they're such complete players early. And then as we start to forecast, as we look into what's going to happen in trade deadline and who's going to be there, I look at Boone Jenner. He's got 10 points in 16 games. Is he like leading the class of someone who's going to be like a targeted during, this season here?
He's going to be up there. Yeah. And they're not shopping him yet. They're not doing anything like that. They want to see where their season's going to go. But they haven't had any meaningful contract discussions either yet. It sounds like maybe some of the younger guys might get priority, like, Fantilli is going to be an RFA and whatnot. But he was a player that attracted a lot of interest last season, and they held off. And he's, battling some health stuff and whatnot. And he's doing that now. But if the Jackets don't go on a bit of an upswing here, and, we get to January, February, before and after the Olympic break, if we get to that position and they're still kind of fluttering, they're not really part of the discussion, or they're a little too further out, I'm sure at that point there's going to be some level of contract discussion that gets escalated. And then at that point, they'll figure out what they want to do with him. But he is going to command a lot of interest, not simply because of his capabilities on the ice, but his cap figure. He is a very attractive player financially and on the ice. There are going to be a lot of teams that would love to get their hands on a guy like that. I know we talked on, earlier in the week, like Edmonton, perfect player for a team like the Oilers. He'd be great on the Maple Leafs if they figure themselves out, get their heads out of their you-know-what right now, which is what Berube is trying to make him do. Almost every contender would love to get their hands on this kind of player, and Columbus will probably, if they do end up moving him instead of signing him, probably be in a hell of a position to collect one great return.
Another thing too, like, again, you mentioned that cap hit with the new rules of double retention, like, again, being able to keep 3.75 once, a lot of teams can still afford that versus, a year ago, but the cap situation is different is kind of my point. And that's also interesting when it comes to a guy like Alex Tuch, right? Who is a legit top line player who's at 4.75 for this season. So you keep it once and every team in the league can still afford it. What's the update on Tuch and the Sabres?
No update, really, because it's status quo. They haven't really escalated conversations. Nobody's hanging up on the other guy, but they're just not there. And I don't think they've been in the ballpark really for some time, which might be an indicator as to why they haven't had constant communication. But nobody's hanging up on anybody. His agent will gladly pick up a call if Kevin Adams dials them up, and vice versa. But they're not there yet. There is a lot that still needs to be done in order for that contract to get done. And I think a lot of it also pertains to where the Sabres are, and can they figure themselves out and go on a bit of a run here. If they can't, and there's still a decent gap, and they're not close to a deal come the new year or a little bit later, just talking about the return Jenner could bring for Columbus, Tuch's going to get that much more out of Buffalo. And again, given where they're at, do you want to take that risk? Like, if the Sabres don't have a good indication that they're going to be able to sign him by the trade deadline, do you want to take the risk of waiting until July? I don't know. I don't think they should. And I don't know if they want to, really. And that's why they brought in some, veteran presence in the management position, like a Jarmo Kekalainen, to kind of assist these types of decisions, along with scout. He's been all over the map, but along with scouting and looking at talent across the league. So we'll see kind of what happens there with Buffalo. But status quo right now, they're not close. They're, they'll pick up a phone call, but I think Buffalo is just right now waiting to see where they're at. And he's another player that if he hits the open market, 10, 11 million, is not out of the realm of possibility. Would not surprise me. So maybe in his best interest to wait too.
Yeah, especially with the lack of free agents that are going to be there too. So when I think of these guys, they're expiring deals, right, Dave? So the one guy for me that I find interesting and maybe ties in is Kadri. Like, would he be a good fit for Montreal? Like, they've had a bit of a skid here. They need a little more maturity, some veteran presence in that room, and he's still got some time left on his deal.
Yeah, he does. A few more years after this one. For his capabilities, a good cap hit, and the Canadians have space to accommodate a big addition. I believe they're not on his no trade list. I think he would be open to going there. The Canadians, we all know, have interest, as you said. I don't think they're there by any stretch yet in terms of the conversation, but. And we know, Calgary's a little bit hesitant. They're still trying to figure out what they want to do. They're still trying to. There's an internal battle as to whether or not now is the time to get going versus, waiting till later in the season or waiting until the off season. But you look at the Canadians and where they're positioned right now. A 2C of Kadri's caliber is very, very valuable to that club. He brings a ring. He brings that force that he has and the energy that he has. Game after game, the Canadians could utilize a piece like that within their top six in their. Especially within their second line. Gallagher still brings a lot of energy, and Anderson can throw the body around a little bit. But what Kadri brings, plus his offensive capabilities at the dot, are certainly very valuable. So I think look, the Flames know the Habs have interest, but they're still in a position, Calgary are, where we're going to wait and see. And the Habs from their side are looking around the market, seeing what other options are available to them. But they've made it known to the Flames, look, when you're ready, give us a call. We want to have a serious conversation.
Dave, as always, appreciate your time. Thanks for popping on. We'll chat again next week.
Can't wait, boys. See ya.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.